This is part 3 of our virtual gardening series, Gospel on a Napkin. Renowned theologian Charles Hodge wrote, "The gospel is so simple that small children can understand it, and it is so profound that studies by the wisest theologians will never exhaust its riches." While exploring the riches of the gospel should be our lifelong, joyful project as Jesus followers, we should also be able to present the heart of the gospel in simple form when we have opportunity. So how might we do that in a couple of minutes on a napkin-sized piece of paper? God's plan was a beautiful world with people living in loving relationship with Him and each other. Love is something that must be freely chosen. But because the first man and woman chose to disobey God, we are now born into rebellion against God and His plan. The Bible calls this sin. Sin leads our lives into a place of brokenness. We don't have to look far to see how broken our world really is. No one likes to stay in a place of brokenness. These squiggly arrows represent our attempts to fix brokenness. Some of these attempts are drugs and alcohol, relationships, success and money, or just being a good religious person. The problem is, none of these things fix the problem. Like a rubber band, they snap our lives back into brokenness. And in the end, we will all die because of our sin. The only way out of our brokenness is to turn and trust Jesus to rescue us from this broken condition. Jesus is God's Son, the prophesied King of Israel, who came to earth 2,000 years ago and lived a perfect, sinless life. But in order to pay for our sin and remove the barrier to relationship with God, Jesus has allowed Himself to be killed on a Roman cross. This was God's plan. He was then buried, and on the third day He rose from the grave. He told His disciples to go into all the world, proclaiming this good news of forgiveness and a new way of life. One day, Jesus will return to judge every person and establish His kingdom according to God's original intention. Jesus calls us to take His yoke, which points to submission, learning, and service to Him, a yoke that's actually easier than the demands made by any other way of life. As we partner with Him, we find that we are being changed to be more like Him and helping others on this path, looking forward to unending life and the full restoration of all things. After showing this illustration, you might ask a person, where are you at in this picture today? Where would you like to be in this picture? Does this make sense to you? Is there anything keeping you from turning, trusting, and following Jesus right now? You won't use this tool unless you practice it and become comfortable with it. Role play it with a friend or with your kids. Also, you could try beginning with Circle 2. It's easy to see that we live in a broken world, but it didn't start out that way, and it won't end that way. This is a small but important part of the process of making disciples, which begins at hello and continues to conversion and beyond that to training disciples to make other disciples. It's not a magical formula guaranteeing safe passage to heaven, but a wonderful invitation to a new relationship and way of life. In the next video, we'll begin to talk about how to move through 4 levels of conversation.